Hey, howdy ho, Lions fans. Welcome to the Detroit Lions podcast, episode 487. This is the Detroit Lions preseason wrap-up. I am your dashing host, Chris, and with me is my good friend and co-host, Jeff, the Risden, also known as Gowdy McShingles. How you doing, buddy?
I have none of those ailments today. I'm doing good. We got a Lions win to talk about. We got roster cuts to talk about. Like there's a lot of actual like Lions related, big time things that are going on that we need to discuss. So that's why we're doing this on a Saturday.
It's crazy.
Taking time out of our weekends to be with you all, to enjoy a wonderful day. It's overcast as hell here in West Michigan. So what better time than to get some Lions talk going?
Oh yeah. Oh man. And boy, after last night's game, a lot to talk about the game. You talk about everyone to a person was saying that game 3 preseason is meaningless, but boy, it was one of the most fun, meaningless games that I think I've ever watched. It was a good time. It was a really good time.
It was cathartic after the week before, because we were all feeling a little down about Jacksonville. And I know there was a lot of circumstances around that game, but the Jaguars kicked our ass. There's no way around that. It was nice to go and kick somebody else's ass, and the big context for me was our second team was better than their first team.
It definitely played with them, that's for sure. And as soon as their twos went in, man, the wheels fell off. We'll talk about that. And a whole lot more. We got that. We got our warm-ups. We got some fun warm-ups today we'll talk about real quick while people settle in and get into the show. Teddy B, he's also settling in. We'll talk about him a little. We'll do the Carolina preseason game takeaways and decision time. Getting to 53. We got all that coming up and a whole lot more. Riz, are you ready to go, my man?
Oh, yeah. Let's do it.
Let's kick this off and break it down.
Oh, man. All right. Here we are. We're
not Kool-Aid. It's a kind of aid, and it's kind of blue. It's actually purple.
Riz with the aid. All right, let's get into it really quick. First, don't forget, it's a week away. We're changing the logo on the audio podcast. Don't get lost. Don't be afraid. It'll be the same. It's just using the logo that we use everywhere else.
It's a cosmetic change, Chris.
Yeah, switching off that spinny one in the bottom there. Also, we've kicked off the Detroit Lions podcast season for St. Jude. Go to stjude.org/DLP and we're going to rock and roll. We're shooting for $50,000 this year. You can help stjude.com, stjude.org. My bad. stjude.org/DLP. Help us out. Help us get some money in there for some sick kids and their families. Lastly, we got fantasy football. This is coming. The draft is coming soon. We're getting into last chances to join. fantasy.detroitlionspodcast.com. fantasy.detroitlionspodcast.com. Get in there. All right, let's get to this. We went from the back to the front. That was open announcements. Let's go into a warm-ups.
Back to the front, from the front to the back.
Always front to back, ladies. All right, let's see. The warm-ups, let's get right into that. Get Lanced. That's an interesting little conversation that we heard. It's in the Athletic. They talked about it. That Trey Lance, they actually kicked the tires on Trey Lance there in Allen Park. And he wound up in Dallas. But Riz, he's such an interesting cat right now. And there's so much around him. I mean, they gave up so much treasure for Lance. And then now for peanuts, he's gone. Could he be what they thought he was? I mean, does anybody really know? It's been injury and, getting ready that's kind of kept him out. And I don't feel like anyone really knows what they got.
I think he is their version of Levi Onwuzurike, a guy who played very scantly in the NFL, didn't get a lot of reps in college, and then you draft him. Now, obviously, they drafted him at a higher profile position, significantly more difficult and complex to learn. And I think they're learning that you can't really develop a quarterback who you can't reliably get on the field. Look, I liked him as a prospect. I didn't love him. I liked him.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't, and I've talked to a couple 49ers people, and they're just like, it just hasn't been there. Like the things that he struggled with in 2021, he's still struggling with them. Like he hasn't progressed. And now maybe that's a coaching thing. Maybe that's a a fact that he knows he's buried on the depth chart behind, a guy who's coming off Tommy John surgery, who was Mr. Irrelevant. I mean, maybe his ego just wasn't meant to be that, but I don't think the 49ers treated him very well. I also don't think that he gave them a lot of reason to. And God bless him. I hope it works out for Dallas. As far as the Lions angle goes, you remember back in that draft, 2021.
Yeah.
A lot of us were thinking that Lance might be Brad's guy at quarterback.
Yeah.
Didn't turn out that. Turned out we didn't even get to find out because the 49ers traded up and took him ahead of time. There were a lot of us in both the Lions media and the draft media who thought that the Lions were very interested in Trey Lance at that time.
Yep. And
didn't work out that way.
He looked like a good prospect. He had all the things you'd want to see. Interesting. I think, again, the fact that they're letting go tells you that the 49ers either have everything they want, which I don't think anybody is there, at quarterback, or they don't trust in him. Dallas didn't give away a lot. There's a lot of swirl around Dak, a lot of just weirdness down there in Dallas, and this doesn't help that. This doesn't help that at all, does it?
Dak's got some contractual things going on, and he's never been comfortable. I used to say all the time that no fan base hated a great player on its own team more than the Lions fans hated Matthew Stafford. I've been corrected by that. Cowboys fans hate Dak Prescott more than the Lions fans ever hated Matthew Stafford. This was back when it was still Frat Stafford, and he was hurt all the time, and everybody was wanting him to go away, like 2012, 2013. That Stafford thankfully did go away and got better.
Yes, he did.
Great.
Yes.
So I'm looking at what they gave up to in the trade. So they gave up a first-round pick, which became Micah Parsons after it was traded. Another first-round pick, which got traded, which became Cole Strange. Channing Tindall, who's a linebacker, and a 2023 first-round pick, which unfortunately didn't get specified here, but that's what it is. But they gave all that up for a guy that played, 5 games? 8 games. 8 games. Yeah, that's insane. Started 4 games, played in 8, completed 54.9% of his passes, threw 5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Did have some success running the football, but he's going to be Dak's backup now. Good for him. That's a good spot for him to be and to mentor. And the Lions clearly weren't interested because it just took a 4th-round pick to get him. They have ample picks. If they wanted to get him, they could have gotten him.
Yeah.
No harm in picking up the phone. Brad Holmes calling John Lynch. Hey, what do you want? What's up with Lance?
It would be misconduct, malfeasance, and malpractice. Had he not, I don't know about malfeasance, but it sounded good. But if had he not kicked the tires on that, so good move. And I'm glad we didn't go too crazy. Especially after last night. We'll talk about him in a minute, but I feel pretty good about Teddy as a backup right now. I thought he would work out in that capacity. He sure seems to be. All right, next little warm up topic we want to hit quickly here is the timeline change. I want to know if you folks felt this last night. And you had to watch to the end. I know some people were like, I've got some other things to do. I'm not going to watch to the end. It's preseason game 3. The quote unquote catch and then fumble out of bounds in the end zone, turnover to the Lions. Now I'm just going to say, this is something that 100% in the last 50 years would have happened to the Lions. A meaningless game that you're losing at the end where you really don't have anything to come back from, and you choke. Just the insult to injury, crazy kind of call that it looked like at first, hey, he had a touchdown. Then I was like, well, maybe he was out of bounds. And then it's like, oh, he didn't have possession. Oh, he did have possession and then fumbled it. And then we get the ball back. They took away everything. You talk about a swing of emotion. That timeline shift of that happening to Carolina and not happening to the Lions. Again, bring back your 1991 glory with your NFC Central champs shirts and the love that comes with that. But man, I am telling you, this, if there's any sign that the tides are changing, you have to jump on this. You have to jump on this. This didn't happen to us. It happened to somebody else in a game against us. This is great.
It's crazy that a dumb rule actually benefited the Lions for once, like you're saying. And I will give the officials on the field, they got it right. Like that, they made the right call. It's a terrible rule. They officiated it properly. One of the rewarding things for me actually watching that last night and being on whatever the hell Twitter is now, was the people recognized that. Like, yeah, okay, we have come so far collectively with bad rules and bad officiating that we understand the difference between the two. Like, that was a well officiated bad rule, not a poorly officiated good rule. like oh my God. And I'm happy that my guy Trevor Dwowski got a forced fumble out of it, even though he got beat badly in coverage. He wanted to make it a play that gets him on the stat sheet even more. So that was good for him. But yeah, that was a very strange way to end that football game. I'm glad it played out that way. It makes, like you said, Chris, it kind of gives you a little bit of hope. Like maybe this tide really is turning.
The timeline has changed.
Everything's coming up Millhouse, from The Simpsons.
Yeah. I got a great question here from Donkey Kong. How do we get that 91 Central Champs shirt? This beautiful, wonderful, amazing retro throwback championship. Bring the championship feel back to Detroit. Get that pride on and get that swag in your step. That we were the champs back in 91, but we did it. We were there again. We got that kind of feel. Go to DetroitLionsPodcast.com/store and you'll have that one available. There's a couple other ones there as well. Men's and women's tees. If you go to women's tees, you'll find a beautiful, it's not a unisex, it's a women's tee. The women's tee runs, what is the word? Slender, I think. It's slim fit. I think that's what it's called. Either way, women's tees, they're out there. Check my timeline on the X thing. You can see my gorgeous wife was alive and well in one of those. Yeah, she wore hers at training camp. Great t-shirts though. All right. Let's do this. Big gout shout out from Ben Diesel. Hey, Ben, thanks for the gout shout. Let's get to it. Teddy B. Really want to talk a little bit about Teddy Bridgewater because there's something we saw and we said about him in the idea that his timing was off last week. In the Jags game, there's a real shift in Lions fans. And I'm so nervous about the first game of the season after watching this in the preseason. How they went from the Giants super high down to this cave of depth of hell in the loss to the Jags, and then now it's again. We've level it out, like never too high, never too low. To quote Caldwell, trim the tops, trim the bottoms. What is it? RMS. Do your RMS on this, and roll with it. You gotta go. But this was a good win. This is a good time. Teddy B gets another week in. He hits his receivers. We'll talk about some of the other stuff, but I really appreciated the difference in what we saw from Teddy Bridgewater from the Jags game to this game. And he was playing. Were they playing their ones on defense too, or was it just the offense? Some. Okay.
They were like, I think. I talked to Mike Kay, who covers the Panthers for the Charlotte Observer, and I think he told me that 8 starters played at least 10 snaps on defense. And this was after the game last night. So, and Mike, I love Mike. By the way, if you're ever interested in the Panthers, please check out Mike Kay's work. He's a phenomenal dude. So they were field testing to see what they've got basically, and they're at a different stage. We can talk a little bit about the Lions' decision not to play starters, but they're in a very different place. They're trying to get their team together and build chemistry together under a new regime. And, you've got a lot of different things going on there. They're in a different spot. And so I understood why they did it. And I'm glad they did it because the Lions went out and showed no quarter, man. They went out there. Just to your point about Teddy looking better than he did against Jacksonville, I was in practice. Was it Tuesday and Wednesday? Wednesday this week.
He messaged me.
He wasn't good then either. Like he was missing timing routes. He was not getting the ball out on time consistently. And I think that's the biggest thing where you get reps that help you out is because Ben Johnson's offense requires very strict timing because you got to hit those receivers. The throw that he hit to Antoine Green for the long touchdown. That's a throw that can only take place in that very fraction of a second, and he was dead on it. and he wasn't hitting that even in the last practice.
Yep.
So that tells me that Teddy is either a gamer or is picking things up really quick. Either one of them I'm fine with.
Yeah, absolutely. We will talk about the players in the cut to 53. Doug, don't worry about that. What's the word with Sudfeld? We'll get on that. We'll talk about Sudfeld here shortly. It's a gout flare up. We'll talk about that. Teddy throwing the dagger was encouraging to a rookie wide receiver, no less. Yeah. Let's go. Just really quick, we'll finish up on Teddy Bridgewater. I thought he was going to be a really good ad. There's a lot of people saying he sucked in Miami. He's burnt. He's done.
He did suck in Miami.
Yeah. But the follow up to that, he's burnt. He's done. He doesn't have anything. As we see, as he's growing here and getting some reps, I think he's going to be probably one of the better backups we've had for a very, very, very long time. And I feel really good about that. I just feel good about having a solid backup that I hope never sees the field, but it makes me feel good.
And what makes me feel good, Chris, is that he can be an asset to the team even if he never sees the field. And that's not something that David Blau or Tim Boyle or any number of cast of characters who came before them were. You see, and Dan Campbell talked about this, Ben Johnson talked about this. Actually, Teddy's teammates have talked about this. He's there to help develop the young wide receivers, to be a sounding board for Goff, to help bring along guys in practice. He's going to help Jameson Williams become the best JMO that he can be. That's why Teddy's here, much more than whatever he can do on the football field as a fill-in for Jared Goff. The plain thing is, if Jared Goff goes down for 4 games, the backup doesn't really matter 4 or more games. Like, the backup doesn't matter a whole lot. Like, this is an offense that's designed for Jared Goff. When you plug somebody else into it and you try to run that offense, it's not going to be the same. Teddy Bridgewater is a different style of quarterback than what Jared Goff is. So from that standpoint, you really do hope that he never sees the field. But man, the fact that he can do so much for the organization besides playing, I think that's invaluable. And I think that Dan Campbell did a very good job of stressing that. And I hope that permeates down to people and fans as well. They're like, okay, he was brought in for more than just his football, and that's already paying dividends. And that's you can do that when you're a better team.
Yep.
Excuse me. When you have an established starter that's not worried about his job security, and has trust from his offensive coordinator. That's a fun place to be. I'm glad we're there.
Sussfeld, I don't know if that's a typo or not. Sussfeld faked the injury for the settlement. I briefly thought that about a couple players. I don't want to. You can't help to let it creep into your mind.
I would just throw that one because it happened on the Panthers sidelines, and the Panthers trainers sprinted out to him and took care of him for a while before the Lions guys got there. There was clearly something up there.
We got to get some better 40 speeds on our medical staff.
Well, I mean, yeah. The initial report, by the way, was a hyperextended knee with a potential bone bruise. That is, if it doesn't have the bone bruise, it's a 3 to 4 week injury. If it has the bone bruise, it's 4 to 8, depending on how quickly he rehabs. And it doesn't require surgery. It just requires rest, time, the whole RICE thing, if you know the acronym.
Yep.
So he's going to be out. No matter where he is, he will be out probably through September.
Yep. Okay, let's.
And we don't know where he's going to be, but probably won't be Detroit.
Yeah, that's the truth. Although Martinez did not light things up last night. I felt like so many sprint out rollouts out of bounds. I felt like that was the play, right? I mean, that was the play.
I was hoping that he would
sprint out right.
He had the reputation in college of being a gamer, and we were kind of hoping that because that's what we've seen in practice all summer. He's not good. No, he's just not. He is. Who was the guy that they had a couple of years ago who went to the USFL? He was from Jordan Ta'amu from Ole Miss. He's the new version of that. Except he's right-handed. I think Jordan was left-handed. It's just not there. I don't have a problem if they don't put him on the practice squad.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Nothing personal against Adrian Martinez, but
here's the part.
I haven't seen it at all this summer.
We're at the part now where the next quotes you'll see on Twitter are going to be, hey, these are people whose dreams are being shattered. What they've worked for their whole lives is being taken away. Oh. And, these are people that shit on players about 51 weeks a year. And then they're going to tell us don't shit on these guys that are losing their dream. But it is absolutely true. In just talking to some of these guys, and Jerry's been a great story, and talking to him a lot, and just exchanging him through the journey that he's taken is really, it's you get to get to the heart of it, and the heart that these guys have, and it's something it's true. Their dream is their dream. They spent their whole life working towards it, and I know I've seen a lot of jokes about insurance sales and all that kind of stuff, but these guys, even if it's the preseason, they played in NFL games, and there are not many people in the world that can say that. So there is a level of freaking talent, man.
And we talked about that. I was in on the huge show the last couple of days. Thanks to everyone in Michigan who listened to that. Me and Eric Zane, that was an interesting time. Happy that I got to get in there. But we talked about that, and we interviewed Lomas yesterday in the 4:00 hour, and Lomas kind of responded like, I never really had to worry about that as a first-round pick. I worried that I wasn't good enough. Like, not that I was going to get cut, but that I was going to embarrass myself. Yeah. But he's like, yeah, it's very difficult to be in that locker room after that game, because there are guys that they know. Again, I'm not somebody who typically likes to go into the locker room after games to begin with. You couldn't have paid me enough money to go in after last night and see guys that are going to sit there with their helmet in their hands and a blank stare, just knowing that it's over.
Yeah.
That's an awful situation. And, I try to extend the privacy and courtesy to that. It's a complex thing, because you're trying to build the best team that you can, and there are clearly some guys who do not belong with that team.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But you also it is somebody's dream dying, man.
I
hope I never lose sight of that. I hope fans don't ever lose sight of that. If I lose sight of that, then I've become what I don't want to be. And we have to criticize people. That's part of our job. By the way, players get that. Coaches absolutely get that. They understand that part of their job and their role and their vocation as a professional football player or professional football coach is to take criticism and to handle it and process it. And it's not easy for some.
Doesn't make it easy, buddy. It doesn't make it easy.
Yeah. No, it doesn't. And in general, I've only ever really had one negative reaction from a player who and it wasn't a Lion, who got cut, and I had said that he deserved to get cut. He's like, man, why are you doing that? I'm like, it's my job, dude. Don't take it personal. It's not. And he kind of was like, I get that, but can you ease up a little bit? So it's hard, and it's good to have that, to memory, especially as we're about to start talking about people who do not belong in the Detroit Lions 53-man roster. We're going to talk about guys in a negative light. That's
There's
what
a
we
lot
have to do.
Like Will Harris and Kabinda and Harris are two absolute lightning rods right now for people, and we'll talk about them. We'll talk about both of them, and
we will. We have to.
It's it's almost kind of stuff a legend, the Risden and Harris thinking, but just understand, and Riz has said it all along. He really likes the guy. The guy is super cool, super nice. Guy. I mean, just really absolutely a wonderful person. But the thing is,
he's someone who gets it. He understands that we have to say bad things about him, and it's not personal. He totally gets that. I had conversations last year with Tim Boyle after he was gone, and anybody who watched this podcast knows that I rip the hell out of that dude all the time.
Yep,
he got it. He wasn't upset at me. He understands that that's part of his job, is handling those things, and some players do it better than others. I commend him for the way he handled it. Because it would have been very easy for him to say very negative things about me, and I probably would have deserved it.
Yeah.
He was classier than that, thankfully.
All right. Let's get into it. Let's blast ourselves into the Carolina preseason game takeaways. Lot went on. Like I said about the timeline shift earlier, That was fantastic. I felt it. I felt it in my soul when they worked their way through there. So first off, the thing we got to talk about is the defense. The Lions #2s playing against the Carolina #1 defense. I'm going to make a comparison. I don't want people triggered. So trigger warning here, PTSD warning. It felt a little bit like the Carolina game last year, but to me, that's really, really encouraging because it was our #2s against their #1s. They weren't running all over us, but okay. Here's something that's happened a lot this preseason, and nobody has talked about it that I've heard. We've held so many teams, especially in the red zone, to field goals, and we did it to them on for their first drive. They were driving, and then we just cinched up the girdle. And we stopped them. Boom. I don't know where that came from. And stopped them
it's
dead.
Appropriate.
Yeah. Stopped them dead. They kicked the field goal. Boom. We've done that to every team that we've played in this preseason. And I really, really am encouraged by that. It's like, okay, if we get beat, look, if you think about any of the games in the first part of last season, they were just shootouts. They're absolute shoot. We'd lose games that we scored 35 points, Eagles game, for example. Because we couldn't stop. If we could, and all we didn't make them punt at all in the game. If we make them kick field goals, those are all games we win. And you know what? That's a significant improvement. And that's an improvement from 32 to 20 as far as your defensive ranking in the league. Maybe even 15, right? I mean, you're talking about an improvement enough that this team could win with that. Love what I saw and how that defense held every team we played to so many field goals along the way.
They do that in the joint practices with the Giants. They did it in the joint practices with the Jaguars. By the way, they've done that to the Lions offense consistently in practice. Also, the defense has outshined. That's a Soundgarden song.
Outshine.
Yeah, that's a great song too.
Good song. Love it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The defense is out whatever shown the offense in the red zone 7-on-7 drills consistently this summer. The Lions' own defense has done that to the Lions' own offense. I think we feel pretty good about the Lions' own offense when all the starters are in there.
Yeah.
The secondary and I'll give the linebacking coverage credit. You've seen it from Derek Barnes, you've seen it from Anzalone, and you've seen it especially from Jack Campbell. They cut down throwing angles to the middle of the field so much that it makes it that much easier for the outside guys to play it so everybody funnels in and makes it gets more crowded, more traffic. It works. It's very different because normally when you're in a red zone defense, let's say it's 3rd and goal from the 5, and they're in a shotgun 4 wide. Like normally you want them to push out and then have somebody run with the crossers. The Lions sort of funnel everybody in and just gum it up.
Yep.
And it's working.
Yeah.
And it's working very well. And that's a tactical change from Aaron Glenn, who has learned from his errant ways, and he probably deserves some credit for that.
And he's probably adjusted to the different talent he has as well in his approach. I think it's a combination, right? And he's definitely got some significant talent out there. So defense as a whole, shout out to them. Also, I'm just seeing really quick. Tom Kennedy pass waivers is now in the Lions injured reserve. That's good to know. Just that defense looked good.
He's been there. He's not going to be ready anytime soon.
Yeah,
he has a broken, not the front of the shoulder. What's the back of the shoulder? Scapula.
Yeah.
He's not playing anytime soon.
Yep.
Like, no.
I want to talk about we talked about the impact or the importance of trajectory, right? Especially the improvement you see from somebody throughout the preseason training camp and Levi Onwuzurike is one guy we've had our eyes on in that regard. And I have to say, last night, Levi, he looked really he took the next step. He took the next step. The trajectory that he's got right now is the right one. I'm starting to get a little bit of that tingle, that little happy tingle about Levi. Like, we didn't think he was going to be able to come back. I mean, fusion, like the spine, it's just like, right? But there he was, sack last night. Levi Onwuzurike, great move. loving this guy's trajectory. And like I said, he's a guy I think that's gonna help this team out this year. It really looks like he's done what it takes and what he needs to.
He played his way onto the 53, not just last night, but over the course of the last couple of weeks, especially because early in camp he wasn't getting the wins. He's getting those now, and you see it, and you see his athletic potential. You saw it last night.
Yep.
Now the thing is that a lot of other guys also had really good nights last night. We got to talk about Corey Turner a bit. My God, that bull rush was unfreaking believable. But yeah, you're seeing Levi learn how to turn his potential into actual football things, and that's kind of been the knock on him. Like even when he was on the field, when he was healthy as a rookie, he wasn't that good at football. Like he was just kind of an athlete out there, sort of winging it. And you're seeing the developmental curve. He's going to be Aleem McNeil's backup. I would put good money on that.
Yep.
And that's a lot higher than I ever thought he was going to get to. And I said it on Twitter last night. Sometimes it's really nice to be wrong and to have a player turn that script on you. It's cool to see, man. Because he's balling.
Yeah,
he's fun to watch too because he's so incredibly top heavy as an interior defensive lineman, but he makes it work for him.
Yeah,
and it's cool to see that.
Yeah. I love to see a man prove everybody wrong, and not just the people that were naysaying. I mean, because let's face it, the naysayers were probably the most grounded in reality, because you just don't see a player come back from that. I can't think of another one off the top of my head. There's probably one or two, but there's a much longer list of players who haven't come back from a fusion of the spine. So, man, Levi, good on you, my man. That is because you want to talk about grit. What it takes to come back from that, and the rehab, and then to start out not playing football for 3 years, and now you're playing football against people that play it every day for 3 years. It's and still not to give up, to keep the grind, to keep putting in the work, to keep putting in the time. Just good on him, man. Really, really good on Levi. I'm really happy for him, and I hope he continues to grow, and in a year that he can do the thigh slap and say, "I told you," because you know what? It'll be like, "Yep, I deserve it. We deserve it. You're right. Yeah. Great work, Levi."
The other thing that goes along with that is to show where the team is at. Like they were in a position where they have enough depth and enough around him to let him try to do it, and they don't have to force the decision on it. Like they have time; they can wait and see what he develops into before they either commit to longer. His contract's up after next year, or they'll see what they've got, and that's a nice place to be. That they didn't have to. They don't have to make that all or nothing judgment on him, and that's a sign of where this team is. Because in the past, we saw it with the guy from Jacksonville, Ledbetter.
Yeah.
That team didn't. That Lions era didn't have the structural depth or developmental bent to their coaching staff to work with a guy who he needed to stay healthy and he needed to work, and that regime didn't really have any use for either of those things or understand how to foster that. And I'm not saying he is going to be number 53 on the Jaguars roster. I do think he's going to make it based on the one Jacksonville media person that still thinks I exist. Which is cool. I'm happy for him, but that shows where this team has come from and where they're going, and why we keep harping as a collective podcast here on how important it is that we have the culture and the structure that we do, and that they're going about things doing it the right way by people. And you don't go wrong in life very often if you're doing right by people around you.
Yep, that is correct. I want to talk about someone else who's doing right, who I felt like just had to be absolutely exhausted at the end of the game, and that's James Houston. My guy, did he play every freaking defensive snap? Because I saw
he was out there a lot.
Yeah.
So let me look that up. They just put the game book out. Let me see.
All right. Yeah, he was out there all night long and disruptive as hell. I mean, look, he had some great reps, he had some bad reps, and he had all kinds of reps where he was disruptive and quietly making a mess in the backfield. Yep. Loved what I saw. I mean, overall, I look at Houston, his performance last night, and I say my guy's stock went up, if not for anything else but durability. But he played very, very well and made some significant options. If I remember right, the Onwuzurike sack, I could be wrong here, folks. I could be misremembering, but I think he helped enable that to happen. There was at least 2 other sacks in the game.
Yes, he did. He cornered, and I had this conversation with Russ Brown, who you'll be seeing more of on these channels, on Twitter last night, or X, whatever. I'm still calling it Twitter. I'm sorry, Elon. I can't.
Yeah, and I'm probably not going to stop.
I can't change these things. But how fast he snapped the corner and flattened to the quarterback. Like, if Levi wasn't there, James was bringing him down. Like, that was pretty dang sweet.
Yeah. Yep.
Let me find where he's at.
Let's see. Yep, no problem. Gilmore made some defensive plays look easy. Yeah,
he
Gilmore
played
out there
52 snaps last night.
Right? My God, he was a wrecking ball. I loved it.
50, yeah. Credited with 4 tackles, 2 quarterback hits, 2 sacks, 1 hurry, and forced a throwaway pass, and also missed 2 tackles.
Yep.
Yeah. That's the James Houston experience in a nutshell right there.
Yeah, there you go.
That's a good game for him.
Yeah. Let's so James Houston, love you, brother. You did a great job. Let's talk a little bit about some kickers.
Ain't no bowl there.
Wow, man. So is Robbie Gould still unsigned? Is he still available? Give him all the money, man. That's all I can say. It's Riley Patterson, hey, brother. I don't know. I mean, you've shown some amazing abilities, but boy, you've also had some real big chonkers there. And last night, like it would have tied his long. We know he's not a long kicker. Missing an extra point after that is, like, while not crucial in that game, is just a oof, man. I like where my head's at is, and we haven't seen enough of them. And I know you may disagree on this one. It is either Romo or go convince Robbie Gould with whatever it takes to convince him to come show up and start kicking the ball in Detroit, because Patterson just ain't it. He just ain't it, and we're gonna wind up in a really. I mean, do you remember the Nate Freeze era? My God, I can't go through that again. I can't have that in our kicking game, especially just with what FIP has done. And we can get to the special teams again. Again, they did it, but I just
they did.
Yeah, I just can't. I can't look at that kicking situation with Patterson as our go ahead this year.
One of the interesting things to me that happened in that game last night was that they had a chance to kick a 61-yard field goal, which is within John Parker Romo's range, and they elected to punt instead.
Yep.
That told me right there that Riley Patterson is the kicker, and that Dan is sticking by what he told us in Indianapolis, in that if we're kicking a bunch of 50 to 55-yard field goals, our offense isn't doing a good enough job, and that's on me. He does not want those he's going to go for it. Like, we've had this conversation before. We like Dan Campbell because he's aggressive on 4th downs. Now, there will come a time and place, maybe, where we have to kick a 53-yard field goal to win a game or tie a game and send it to overtime. Riley Patterson can't do that. Like, you saw it last night. He tapped out every ounce of leg strength and it hit the upright. We've seen that consistently all summer. He is not, his kickoffs, he's barely getting to the goal line. And that's like, again, every ounce of fiber of his being going into the kick. Now, some of that is the fact that he tends to kick it a little higher. And I do think that there's a technical tweak that they could do to maybe add 2 or 3 more yards on by getting him to change exactly where his front foot steps. I believe I actually know these kicking mechanics. I went to a class. He could maybe get to where he's kicking it off and getting touchbacks. But as far as the field goals go, like, what you saw last night is what you got. Yep. And that's not Matt Prater. It's not Jason Hansen. Now, like I said, though, so it's not an organization that's going to be going out there. If it's 4th and 4 from the opposing 38,
40? Yeah,
They're going for it.
Yeah. That's exactly it. That's why Patterson is the wrong kicker. Like, even if he was money from 40 and less, it's like, that's not when we're kicking the ball, right? That's like a mismatch for what you need.
Points, man. You cannot miss extra points, and that wasn't close. Like, it was one of those. If you go back and watch the tape, and I'm like a third of the way through the film study. Scott Daly, the long snapper, knew it as soon as he heard it that it wasn't going in. Like, you can see his head snap a little bit. Like, oh, that wasn't good. It's rough, man.
Well, so we'll see what happens.
We're spoiled with kickers here.
We have been. It's, you know what? I feel like I'll give up on the kicker spoiling if we can get spoiled like the Packers were on quarterbacks. Wells Walker brings up a great point, and this is something I saw last night. I want to talk about. Found it a bit disappointing that we still haven't figured out how to defend mobile quarterbacks. Nice to see the defense stepping up in the red zone and forcing field goals, but yeah, even Coral ran on us. I'll just want to say, here's I don't disagree with that at all, Wells. I don't disagree with that take at all. Here's the one thing though, that is the it's still unknown, and here's why I say it's unknown whether we've kind of figured out the mobile quarterback thing. Our first game is against one of the most talented mobile quarterbacks in the league. I don't think we wanted to give even one inkling away of what we would do in that Kansas City game. So either what we saw is the truth and we still haven't figured it out, which is entirely possible, number one, or number two, we're keeping it in the bag until the games matter. And I'm right now going to choose to believe and hope that we're keeping it in the bag till the games matter. It was a second D, but once Corral came out and did that, it was like, oh God, we haven't stopped this. We haven't figured this out, but I'm just hoping. And that's where I'm going to kind of rest it. We'll know after week one, after game one.
Look at who our linebackers were that were in the game last night. At that point, it was Trevor Nowaski and Anthony Pittman. Those are not guys who are going to be ever on the field in that situation against a Justin Fields, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, whoever it might be. That's not who they are. Derek Barnes, one of the things that actually impressed Jacksonville people when they came was how well Derek Barnes contained Trevor Lawrence, who can run. He got him. They didn't let him hit him, unfortunately.
Well,
there were a couple of times where
I wish we could have hit some
Trevor
Carolina
was going to go.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So I think you're seeing the relative difference of skill there between the third team Lions linebackers and even Rodrigo and Campbell. For all the things that Jack Campbell's good at, that's not one of the things that he's good at is stopping mobile. Haven't seen that yet.
Mm-hmm.
He's exceptional in coverage. I would say almost without hesitation that he's the Lions' best coverage linebacker right now, and he's certainly a great tackler. But there's some things to work on. One of the things I think is him. If you go back into the draft process, you saw him get caught flat-footed by Blake Corum in the Michigan game, and that we've seen that in practices too. He will get caught flat-footed at times, but the relative speed of the linebacking core is better, and I think having active slots like CJ, GJ, and Brian Branch is going to play a very big deal on that. If you're going to be comfortable surrendering a dump-off pass behind them to a tight end or a running back leaking out, like a 4-yard pass, and then somebody swarms and tackles him, rather than turning and running with that receiver and letting the quarterback get 15, that's the choice they're going to make. And I think from what we've seen in practice, I think we're going to like the choice that they make there.
Yeah, absolutely. Kevin Newsham in the comments.
They got to get him on the ground, though.
Took a break from football content in the offseason, but I got my pants off now, so I'm ready to get this season going at DLP. That's right, buddy.
Cheers.
Ours haven't been on. It's been we've gotten burned in all the soft places, but it's okay. It's been a good summer. But welcome back. Welcome back, Kevin. Thanks for joining us again and coming back for all the football fun. All right. Any other pre-game takeaways, Riz? Jared Goff, is he even on this team? Not a single completion. Hutchinson, didn't even hear his name called. That was I don't know, man. Bust. This team's a wreck.
Oh, the AI boss. You gotta watch these things.
Don't talk bad about the AI. It's going to cut you off, bro. All right, let's get into it. Let's have a little conversation here. And there's some speculation, but it's a conversation. It's verbal other-bation. It's decision time. And this team has to get to 53. Dan Campbell in his post-game last night said, what was it? Did he say 99% or was it 95%? It was high 90s%.
Yes.
They knew what they were doing, what the roster was going to look like, and then they had some hard decisions. I'm pretty impressed if that's really the case. If they're 99% set on what the roster is, that means they're only swinging on two guys or waffling on two positions, right? That, and actually it's one. That's pretty crazy that they're that confident of 52 positions on the roster. I think he would probably exaggerate a little bit. I have to imagine that there's probably 5 to 7 spots that they're kind of juggling a little bit and making some decisions on, particularly with the JMO suspension, right? Because it actually gives them a little bit of flexibility as to what they're going to do at other positions as well.
And I think the stress point there is how many wide receivers do you keep knowing that one of them is going away the day after? Because JMO obviously will be on the 53-man roster and then he will go away. Are you worried that one of the players that you might cut might wind up somewhere else? And I think that's one of this easier for me to say. One of the decision points that they have to make is, do we keep 7 receivers or 6? I think that decision actually got made a little bit easier when Nate Sudfeld got hurt, because I think that takes him out of the equation for being on the 53-man roster. There is a pathway where he can do that, where he'll make the 53, then they'll put him on IR so they can bring him back later in the year. I just don't think they're going to do that. I don't know that, but I don't think they're going to do that. So that's an extra roster spot. I think it's pretty clear by the way that they have handled the running backs that they're only keeping 3, and that opens up a spot. And Craig Reynolds, by the way, absolutely ran away with the number 3 spot. Not that he didn't have it already.
Yeah,
he was great last night.
Oh God, great decision making. One play, he ran to the back of his blocker. It was a goal line play, and I was a little disappointing. But other than that, he made some really great decisions, great vision out there. Really liked what I saw.
That's a terrible play call, by the way. You do not have a running back like Craig Reynolds, who's not a quick guy. You don't give him a static handoff out of the shotgun with 2 yards. Like that's an asinine play call. Get rid of that.
Yeah,
it didn't work, especially when your right guard can't block anybody. And at that point in the game, they weren't. There was 3 defenders there waiting for him. So yeah, that I'm not blaming Craig for that. I'm blaming Ben Johnson for that one. Ben's not above criticism.
Johnson power.
He'll learn. But yeah, so I think there's an extra roster spot that maybe you were not budgeting to wide receiver that you can now move over there, and maybe you can keep Dylan Drummond and Maurice Alexander or Antoine Green or Chase Cota or whoever you want to keep that wasn't going to have a spot. Now it's more feasible for them to have a spot.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Ooh.
When I did the little pregame thing about, I didn't actually do like a bubble watch. I did more of like the decisions that they have to make, and that was the avenue that I was going down was, do you keep one of them is honestly, do you keep 2 undrafted rookie cornerbacks as your top reserve outside cornerbacks? Like, they're certainly good enough, but is that something that you really are comfortable going into the season with? Like that's a mental hurdle that you have to overcome. But like finding the numbers of positions that you're going to keep. Are you keeping 6 linebackers? Are you keeping 5? Are you keeping 5 defensive tackles? Are you only keeping 4 because Kaminsky and a couple other guys, Pascal, can play inside if you need them to? Like, those are the flex points. I think those are the decisions that they're making more than it's about the actual players who are going to be in those spots. I think they know. I think I think we were led to believe that they have a very good idea of their roster. As my good friend Eric Schlitt likes to say, the roster stack. You know, how you go from 1 to 90. I think they have a pretty clear picture of what that is. It's just a matter of which position groups do we stress versus take a little bit of a risk with. And I think that's the decision that Dan's talking about.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Sorry, I just had some info in the chat that I had to take care of. Okay, so let's talk about. Let's see. We got kickers. Right. We talked about James Houston. We talked about Levi. Let's kind of walk through some position groups here and talk about how we think we're going to go. And I'll just start. Let me just start first with quarterback. Right. Do you think Jared Goff makes the roster? Do you think Jared Goff? What? Oh, good take. Solid take there.
Very confident in that one, Chris. Very confident. Dare I say, ebulliently confident.
Yes. Let's see here. Teddy Bridgewater makes the team. You get down to who's your backup. Is it Sudfeld? Is it Martinez? What about your guy on NFI, Hendon Hooker? Of course, I think he eventually gets one of those spots, right? I think we carry 2 quarterbacks though. Yeah, with him on NFI.
I agree. I think, and again, I think Sudfeld's injury made that a moot point. Like, I do think that they were having that discussion, but now you don't really need to have it because Hooker looks good. He looks like he could be ready to roll if they needed him to roll, but they don't. So they can let him stay on NFI as long as they want, and that's good. Yeah. By the way, he is on NFI. It's mostly on PUP.
So let me ask though,
they technically don't have to pay Hooker. They don't. If you're on the NFI, you don't have to be paid. The Lions are indeed paying.
Yeah, Hooker. Of course.
I learned that the other day. Of course they are. But
let me ask you though, on NFI, how long do you get on NFI? I need a reminder. I don't remember off the top of my head, and I know you're my encyclopedia.
It's now 4 weeks.
Okay.
You can be activated after 4 weeks. You can be designated to start practicing. And it's not the same as being designated to return from injured reserve. There's different vernacular to it, but it's effectively the same thing. Like, you can't just like come off of the NFI and instantly be in a game. Like, you have to get activated first. So
yeah.
But I'm with you on that. I think they're keeping 2, and I think Hooker is the 3rd, and he'll. If they don't need him as a 3rd, they won't stress it. And this is an area where having Tanner Engstrand and JT Barrett and Mark Brunell, Antoine Randall L, all these old quarterbacks that are on the coaching staff can still sling it.
Yeah.
If they need a practice body.
Antoine Randall L has a hell of an arm still. Sorry, we talk about Antoine.
Yes,
seeing him at training camp, he can wing a ball like crazy. But you're right, the coaching staff definitely has arms on him.
Yeah, Tanner can really whip it. He's got some snap to him, and you can also have a practice squad quarterback, whether it's Adrian Martinez or somebody that gets whacked from somewhere else. I don't know how they feel about Adrian Martinez. I haven't had that conversation. Yeah. It wouldn't surprise me if they moved on from him, though, just from what we saw this summer. Like, it was one of those things where it was like a collective sigh all the time from the media because a lot of us were rooting for him. Like, this is a guy. He gave us some tremendous college football moments, and like, especially as a draft pick, I appreciated those things. Like, he made himself into the best possible Adrian Martinez that he could be. I respect that, but it's probably not good enough for the NFL. And if they keep him, that's great. I'm happy for him. If not, I'm also happy that they moved on and found a different potential practice squad quarterback. And that's going to be a market that there's going to be a lot of guys. We saw Jake Luton last night. In fact, he's already been cut by the Panthers today. He's not he actually started a couple of games for Jacksonville pre-Trevor Lawrence. Like, there's going to be guys out there who might have a little bit more than what Adrian Martinez offers you.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. We've got a lot of stuff here really quick. Who said that? Sorry. Grit. I don't like politics in my sports. That's why I choose YouTube. Yeah, we from day one we said no politics on this. You'll never get that from us. So worry not. Worry not, Grit.
I actually let one inadvertently slip a couple weeks ago, and I apologize for that. And what it was not, it involved a political figure, but it was not in the context of politics. And we'll just let that go because that's not what we do.
There you go. That's what I love, Riz, because I didn't we self-correct. I didn't even say anything, right? I was like, I heard it the minute. I'm like, but I'm like, he knows. He'll, it's like
I didn't realize it until later that because it's a different. I was saying it from a different context. But I understand that in a politically charged world that we're in, you got to be careful of that. And I wasn't. I feel bad about that. If I offended anybody on that, I'm sorry because it wasn't meant to be that way.
Yeah. Let's talk really quick. We talked about quarterback. It's the obvious position, I think. And before we go on to more, there was a topic that came up in the chat that I want to hit, and it's a really good one. The Carolina Panthers. Are we worried about players who don't make the 53 winding up somewhere else? And I'm going to say yes. And I'm going to say here's the things to look for on these players and where they're going to land, because I think
circle them on my roster.
These guys are a strategic advantage to some people. I think Carolina absolutely could use the players, not just for the intel, but for the players themselves. And you've got Deuce there. You've got some people with Detroit connections in Carolina. You might be able to see some good stuff there. But I would also look at the 3 division rivals to try to pick up some players on an intel basis first, even beyond capability. The problem is, and this is again, we've dreamed about this time, but we are finally a team that's going to cut players that will play and potentially even start on some teams in the NFL. And while that's awesome, it also sucks, right? But we'll just take that and we'll love the position we're in to be able to do that. So, Riz, who else do you think Kansas City is a team that might just pick up an intel guy as we make the 53 cuts? Or do you think that Andy Reid is just in Andy Reid's world and he doesn't care about what the Lions think they're going to do?
I will go back and I will paraphrasingly quote Pat Kerwin, our friend.
Yes.
From Sirius XM NFL Radio, former Jets GM. He said, if you're that worried about needing help to figure out how to do an opponent, you're not a good football team, and you're specifically not a good football coach.
Yep.
If you don't trust yourself to scout and that you need that much help from somebody who comes in for 2 or 3 days, you are not going to last. And I'm a very big believer in that.
Yeah.
If they want to, if every single Lions opponent wants to pluck somebody off of our practice squad, God bless them. I don't think it's going to help them that much. I really don't. And we went through this last year when David Blau went to Minnesota, and there was all this consternation. Oh, he's going to give more plays. That doesn't mean they can stop it.
Yeah,
he's not helping them stop it.
Yep.
You know.
Oof. There you go.
That's my whole attitude on that. I don't. Quite frankly, there are some times where I wouldn't mind a player being signed off of it if it's a player that I like and think can play, and they're going to get a better opportunity somewhere else. Good for them, man.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's what you're there for.
Yep.
I take a very different viewpoint on that than a lot of people do. But I am firmly in Pat Kerwin's camp there. That let them do all that chicanery. Let us be that much in their head that they're that worried about us instead of them worrying about themselves.
Yeah. 100%. All right, let's walk our way through these positions, if you don't mind. We'll kick into running back here. That's a big position after quarterback. David Montgomery obviously makes team. Jahmyr Gibbs, oh boy, I put him in the running back category just to categorize him. Maybe we could have an offensive weapon and a defensive weapon kind of category because you got a little Deion Branch going on too. You could probably do something like that, but we'll just kind of go traditional. We'll go trad, just like what was Ronan earlier? It said that
we'll go trad. Oh my God, we're millennials.
Ronan. That Millard Fillmore was a hell of a guy, right? We'll go back to the Fillmore days. Montgomery, Gibbs, of course. Reynolds, I think you're right. Here's one, and this is one of those lightning rods, Riz. And you know what? maybe I have a controversial take. I don't think Kabinda makes the team. I don't, and I don't think
Really?
yep, I don't think they need him. I think that from a developmental perspective, they probably feel they have more use and ceiling from a backup like Jamar Jefferson. I think that at tight end, some of those guys, you could have them play that fullbacky kind of role. I just think that his usage, he's dropped so many balls. He's like the Corey Fuller of fullbacks, right? He does some things really well, but the things you can't ever use him, right? He winds up being a decoy or a blocker, and it's just not enough bang for the buck, not enough juice for the squeeze. It's just, I don't think, and I like the guy. I think he's funny. I love his intensity. I love his work ethic, all of that. I just don't think that strategically he makes the roster. And I'm sure you probably differ on that.
I agree with everything you said. I just think that they're keeping him.
There you go. Okay.
Everything that you laid out is exactly my point of view as well. But I don't think they're going to cut him. I don't think they will. I'm perfectly willing to be proven wrong there. I would like it.
So am I. Like, if he stays, I get it, right? I get it why they keep him, but I just don't think he fits strategically.
To go back to the whole roster, numbering 1 to 90, he's not higher than 70 in terms of like usefulness or talent and how it applies to the Lions. But it doesn't mean they're going to get rid of him. I will be happy to be proven wrong there if they cut him, because you know how we do in mock drafts, we do the what I would do versus the what we think is going to happen. This is one of those where they're divergence. What I would do, I would cut him. He would be one of the first players I would cut.
Mm-hmm.
But what do I expect him to do? I think he's going to be out there on the first snap of the game in Kansas City in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah. Really quick, things are getting heated in the chat, guys. We're not a political thing. We've got Millard Fillmore was the best 13th president we've ever had. Let's just kind of woe it back, guys. Let's try to keep calm. We're going to talk football here. We're not doing politics, right? We love Millard Fillmore, or we hate him. It doesn't matter. Let's move on. Let's move on from Millard Fillmore to a more.
I have no opinion on Millard Fillmore.
Don't know that anybody really does. But really quick, while you can, since we don't do politics other than Millard Fillmore,
I'm a Chester Arthur fan.
Like, subscribe, do all those things we ask once a show. Please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. That helps other people find us as well and help us continue to grow and do the thing that we do. And we bring, Michael Gray. We bring tomorrow Zach Moran. We got some Russ Brown.
Yes!
And Russ partnering up with Scott Bischoff again. Some great stuff. We've got Ash doing the daily. We've got us. We've got the post-game show. Sam and Chris, Ash doing the whole thing. It's a lot of fun. So join us and do the like, the subscribe, and do all that. We appreciate when you do that. It means a lot. All right, let's get into anything else at running back. Is there anybody else? I kind of kept Jamar for the developmental and depth over Kabinda. You're a Kabinda guy. Do you think probably Jamar is the guy that falls by the wayside, or do you think they keep an extra, like a fifth?
I am very against the grain here. I don't think Jamar would be the fifth. I think Benny Snell would be the fifth. Because he has 1,000 snaps of special teams experience. And I will go back to something that Dan Campbell told Dan Miller before the Jaguars game. And you can watch it. It's on Fox 2's website. I assume it's still up there. But when Dan Miller interviewed Dan Campbell before every game. And one of the things that Dan said, and I will very closely paraphrase here, was he was talking about cornerbacks, but he's like, if we're deciding for a fourth cornerback, like we're looking at special teams. I don't care if he's a better cornerback on defense. I care about special teams. Like, that's what that role is for. That's what that last running back role is for as well. And Benny Snell's good on special teams. The difference between what he offers your offense and what Levi Onwuzurike does or Jamar Jefferson does is negligible in terms of having running back depth. Jamar's faster. He runs outside a little bit better. He can't pass protect me. He's just not that guy. I don't know that the Lions see him that way. So I think if they keep one, it would be Benny Snell over Ozigbo and Jamar and who's the other guy that they added? He's not even on this roster because this is from Jacksonville week. They picked somebody else up too. I don't even know who it is. I can't think of it off the top of my head. Is it on this one? What's this the numeric one? That's trash.
Sorry, now they're going into Grover.
This is what we use at practice to figure out, like, when they're. Who's number 4? I did that the other day. Who's number 4? Oh, that's Emmanuel Mosley. Hey, he's wearing his jersey. We've never seen that before. Corey Woods and I were like, who's 4? Oh, yes, this is great.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. All right. Let's is there anybody else they keep, or is that the count?
That's it. I think they keep 4 with Kabinda being the 4th.
Yeah. A lot of talk about Dave Phipp in the chat. Yeah, he is it. Just kind of throwing back to special teams really quick. They have been just a destructive force, both in getting the ball and moving it, and stopping the other team on their returns and from moving it. If it wasn't for the kicker conversation, I think we already have a statue of Phipp out front of Ford Field, because they've been the returns, man. Just the returns alone have been insane. Like the yardage that we're getting on returns in this throughout the preseason against all 3 teams it's something completely different than we saw last season. If that carries through into the regular season, if they can continue to operate like that, holy crap, brother! That completely changes the situation for the offense. It's a whole different ball game on the offensive side of the ball.
You know what's awesome is that every run back has started on the left side, and it's been blocked the same, and it goes to the right, coming across the field.
Yes.
Every return has been the same, and it doesn't matter who's returning the ball. It's killing it. That's Dave Phipp.
Yeah. All right. Quick question. Did Patterson win the job officially? No, I think he lost it officially last night. All right. Let's get into wide receiver. I think we'll get to kickers. We'll get to kickers.
Yeah, we will.
Amon-Ra St. Brown, obviously on the roster. Khalif Raymond. They didn't sign him for nothing. He's there. Marvin Jones. He's an interesting.
He as his back has healed, he's gotten progressively better. Again, I will reiterate the caution. This is not 2018, 2019 Marvin Jones. This is 2023 post-Jacksonville Marvin Jones. Still a good player, but it's not the same dude.
And that's I love Marvin Jones. I say, go get your nothing bunt cakes. Buy those bunt cakes, baby. Go to town. They're the best in the biz. This is me. I'm insane. Tell me I'm off my rocker.
Is he your surprise cut, Chris?
Yeah. And I love him. I just don't think I think he puts a cap on what we can do at wide receiver. I think you got the best you're going to get out of him in week 1, and you'll never get more. If I think of this team, and this team is a trajectory team, and how they work throughout the year, they grow their guys, and I don't think they want to cap themselves at a position. So that's that. Love him to death. Again, it's not about the guy. It's just about how the strategy, how I think this team strategizes around their position. So all about that trajectory.
I like that perspective. I don't think that they're going to do that, but I appreciate your rationale. Like that's a well thought position.
Ooh.
And we'll see.
I don't think I'm right. I don't think let me say, I don't think I'm right. I'd put money against that. Okay. But I think that's the right move. And I think there's a chance that they do think that way. So I mean, I don't want to play both sides, right? If it was me sitting in the chair, that's probably the best way to do it. If I was sitting in the chair, I would do that. And I think there's a cadre of people in the front office that think the same way I do. I just am not confident enough that enough of them are there to make that move. But it is like you've got a cap. You don't want to put a hard cap on what you can do.
I don't disagree with that. But I think he's safely on. I think Josh Reynolds is safely on. There's your 4. I think we got Josh Reynolds isn't going anywhere.
No, Josh.
He might be the team's lead. He might be the second leading receiver for the first 6 weeks.
Yeah.
It might be longer than that too, for all we know.
Well,
and then obviously J-Mo makes it and then goes away.
The chemistry between Reynolds and Goff, you cannot discount that. It means a great deal. It's real as heck. Yeah, absolutely. And Reynolds is better with Goff and Goff is better with Reynolds. Period. That makes the whole Detroit Lions offense better. So I'm absolutely confident he's there. I will say I'm pretty high on Drummond. I think this guy, he's a guy that has that cap, that open ceiling, man. That's good. He could be so much more and bring so much more to this team, in a quick way. I'm in on Drummond making the roster, man.
All right, so let me look here. This is not a completely up-to-date roster. The guys we haven't mentioned yet: Maurice Alexander, Trinity Benson, Jason Moore, Antoine Green.
That's what I want to get to next. Is Green,
Avery Davis, and Chase Cota.
So far, we've got Amon-Ra, we've got Josh Reynolds, we've got Khalif that's made it. Marvin Jones, we're not. We're probably 33% on. Not making it. Drummond, are you in on Drummond? Making the roster?
I think so.
Yeah. All right.
I think but this comes into where they're keeping. How many are they going to keep? If they're only keeping 5, I don't think it's Drummond. If they're keeping 6, I think he's got a spot.
Yeah. Interesting. So
and
then
that's not counting Jameson Williams, who will be one of them that makes it.
Eventually. And he will bump one of these guys that we're talking about in after 6 weeks, I think.
Or an injury will happen and they'll be thankful that he's back and they have 4 capable receivers.
Somebody will get bumped potentially. They may keep 5, knowing J-Mo's coming back, and keep an extra offensive lineman, defensive lineman, right? They may do something like that as well, right? Because 6 weeks, the injury to go that deep, we'll see. But all right, so Antoine Green, let's talk about him.
Somebody hurt.
Yeah, always. Antoine Green, what do you think? You think he makes it?
I think he solidified himself last night, and the way that he pulled away from the defense after that catch. Dylan Drummond can't do that. Chase Cota can't do that. And what is this offense built on, Chris? Yak.
Yep. So I'm going to go back. You're 100% right. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to apply that because it came up, Theo, in the chat. I'm going to apply that to Marvin Jones because he throws back. You talk about the Marvin Jones we had and Matthew Stafford. I'm going to make a comparison. People don't freak, but this is where there's some real similarities here.
I know exactly where you're going.
Kenny Galladay, the separation problem, and Brad Holmes knew that and said that's not a Jared Goff receiver. And that's where I go back to Drummond. The wicked cut. His route running is frigging tight.
He creates really sharp.
He creates separation there where Marvin doesn't. And Theo, this is a great point. I mean, that separation gives him an opportunity to make the team where Marvin Jones doesn't. Again, we'll see. Okay, so Antoine Green, you believe makes the cut. So now we have, so Mo Alexander. What do you think about Maurice?
It was crazy. We were just talking about how good the kick returns have been. He was actually the least effective of the kick returners. Now, he had a fantastic punt return touchdown against the Giants.
Yep.
But that's Khalif's job. And also, Sterling Thomas can return punts. J-Mo can return punts for that matter.
Yep.
I don't think that's the feather in his cap a lot of people think it is. So I'm not sure that he's going to make it. He's a guy who you can keep him on the practice squad. He can line up in the slot, which I do think is an asset because right now they don't really have a backup slot behind Amon-Ra. And so this week in practice, when with no Amon-Ra there, and by the way, he could have played last night if he needed to.
Don't you think Khalif,
just judging on how he looked,
don't you think Khalif could fill in slot?
But he doesn't, and that's what I'm getting to. Josh Reynolds was their slot. In practice, and Khalif was outside on him. It's weird because Khalif is built like a slot guy, and Josh is built like an outside guy.
He has the moves,
but they switch it. Reynolds was probably in the slot at least 75% of the time, directly filling in the Amon-Ra role.
I just thought of who could play slot. Jameer Gibbs.
Okay, I'm going to push back on that, and this is not going to be a popular conversation.
It's okay.
You will see him do it sometimes, but we just watched the Arizona Cardinals botched the hell out of Isaiah Simmons because they gave him too many things to do and he couldn't master any of them. I don't want that to happen to Jahmyr Gibbs. Let's let him be a running back. Let's let him be a great running back and then maybe work on the receiving part later.
I will. Okay, fair. But Isaiah Simmons came out. Remember when he came out of college, nobody knew what the hell he was. And so he came to the NFL and nobody knew what the hell he was. And so they tried to do too much and figure it out. Not a popular
draft position to have at the time to say that, oh, he's, Miles Jack, by the way, another guy who just retired, was another guy who didn't really have a position. And I will give the Jaguars a little bit of credit. They found one for him eventually, but it took some time.
Yeah.
There's I really want Jahmyr Gibbs to be a great running back. And if that involves running out of the backfield and running routes out of the backfield, that's great. I don't want him practicing as a slot receiver because it takes away from what he does as a running back. Yeah. I know that's not a popular decision, but that's the way I feel about it.
That's fair. That's fair. I think he's not just a running back. And again, I think in the slot as a backup, if Amon-Ra gets injured, that's not a terrible thought process for Gibbs. We'll see how that goes. Okay, one other person.
I would rather have a wide out there because this goes back though. If you do that, you've got to keep another running back because what if you're stressed and David Montgomery gets injured and all of a sudden Jahmyr is your slot guy and he's playing out there? Who's your running back? Who's your backup? Like that's the ripple effect of that. And I don't want to go down that road.
Interesting. Okay. Let's get to the next guy who's probably got the biggest chance, but I think not. Trinity Benson. I think he's a casualty. I don't think he makes the.
I agree.
All right. Let's move on to tight ends. I think they keep 3.
Yeah.
And I think they're obvious.
Are we going to talk about, did we talk about Coda and
God, Davis? How did I skip? Sorry. I am still sorry that I skipped Coda. I want to talk about him for some reason. I was watching all the chat and I made the mistake of thinking we talked about Coda. Chase Coda, I think he's a practice squad guy. Go ahead.
I agree. I think he is too. And I think you saw last night the difference between Drummond and him and Antoine Green and him. And Chase Coda is a good player, but he needs a little. They have used him as a pseudo tight end in the way that they used Devin Funchess once upon a camp. The way that they've used, who was that guy? I can see him and I can't think of his name. Anyway, Coda can, if he would gain 10 pounds and he can hold it, he's got the frame for it. I could absolutely see him being a guy who is your hybrid wide receiver, tight end, special teams ace type guy.
You know who I was
thinking? You can develop that on the practice squad.
I was thinking of somebody. I know you don't like him, but you can say why if you want. I don't care. And it's not a direct comparison, but it reminds me of him a little bit. Joe Fourier. You remember him? He could very well play that big guy in the end zone role to pick up the high ball, right? I mean, he's got to get some dance moves, but otherwise I could see him playing a very similar kind of a role. And like you said, he could come into a tight endy position, like a second tight end on the one side of the line, right? It's like, oh God. Okay.
Yeah. So this is the conversation that we've had in our work Slack, the NFL Wire editor Slacks. And we brought up, and this will run later this week, but one of the things that we had to write was, who is the most likely player on your roster to be cut, to be claimed by another team? And we're through like 26 of them. There's still a few strikers that haven't written it yet. And I looked through the list not long before we came on the air. Not one of them is a wide receiver. Not one. Which leads me to believe that you're not going to get a lot of... I think most people there's enough wide receiver depth and saturation around the league that you can get Coda and or Drummond through to the practice squad. And I'm not concerned about that much. I do think Antoine Green would get claimed because he's got a superior athletic profile to both of those.
Yeah.
And he also he can offer some things as a return man. He has played well on special teams the entire summer, even when the offense wasn't necessarily flowing for him. So I think he's making it. But if by some weird chance he doesn't, I do think he is the only one of those guys who would get claimed by another team.
Yeah.
I could be foolishly wrong on that, but I think we always worry about this every year. I should look at. I did the research on it last year too, and the year before. The year before, everybody freaked out about who's going to. 11 players around the league got claimed that got waived on the first day. 11. Like, there's not going to be this rash of we're going to cut 6 guys and who get claimed by other. That is possible, but it's just not the way the league works. The teams. And this is a conversation that we had with Matt Patricia. Believe it or not, Chris, you were there for this.
Yep.
He talked about this, about how we want the guys that we've invested time in, and we assume that other teams are going to feel the same way. That we're going to value the guys that were here more than another team would value a guy who was here. That every team sort of sees things that way. And I kind of agree with Matt Patricia on that.
The only difference, though, is people tend to value players from good teams highly as well. And I think the Lions right now are seen as a good team. So we will see. There's some uncharted territory, and we'll see how that goes. Of course, Jameson, we talked about, is suspended. Can we go to tight end now? Yeah. Are we ready to move on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, tight end.
I think this one's quick to me. I think there's 3 of them. I think it's Brock Wright. I think it's James Mitchell, and maybe Sam Laporta holds on.
And I don't. Now, the rub could come in here. If they do get rid of Kabinda, they could keep Darrell Daniels as a 4th. Or Daniel Heim.
Or Coda.
I don't. I like the cut of your jib!
I just think
this is also a position where if they did do that, this is one where I could see them shopping, quite frankly. Because there's going to be some tight ends that have greater cachet around the league cut than the guys who the Lions are going to cut.
Yeah. Okay, tight end, we move on. O-line. Now.
Yeah. Look at all these mofos. It's the biggest thing on the list by far.
Yeah. And this is one of those things when you see so many guys and then you say, wow, we don't have any backups. Is it we have so many guys because we're just hoping somebody can come in and hit? Or are we just seeing so many of the lower tier guys? It's like, am I getting a bias because of this gigantic list of people that we have? Let's just go Decker, Jackson, Ragnow, Vaitai, Sewell, and Glasgow. All going to make it. Can we just say that?
And Sorsdal. There's 7.
Okay. So we'll say Sorsdal as well. Anywhere. Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. I was just talking about your starters and then the one assured backup, and then we'd go from there. But yeah, Sorsdal is, and dude, I'm going to tell you, Sorsdal is a guy you starting to see it, right? If it was in the Elephant Walk at Senior Bowl, when the guys would come up on the stage and we would be evaluating them, and I had my notes. My notes were fun. My notes were hilarious, right?
It was fun.
Colby Sorsdal would have gotten country strong. That's what he would have been listed as, right? And we talked a little bit about Hutchinson's baby fat last year, and a lot of people took that. Oh no! Even my wife. There was a picture this last week. She was like, oh yeah, he's changed, right? I mean, and I was like, I told you, right?
Maybe.
Colby is going to go through a little bit of a similar body change this offseason. He'll keep working, but the NFL nutrition and strength and conditioning is second to nothing in college. I don't care if it's Alabama, who everyone says is basically a pro program, and they basically are. They are nothing compared to what you get in the NFL, period. Colby Sorsdal, Williams and Mary, right?
William and Mary, not exactly a football powerhouse. That's a brainiac school.
Yeah. My guy is going to really. I think the body transformation you'll see from him is going to be something special. I know Hank likes him. I know they like him in the offensive line room. I think you're 100% that Colby Sorsdal makes it, regardless of where he was drafted. Yeah.
We're keeping 7 there, and we pray to God that those are the only 7 who ever have to play. Although I'm going to make a case. I think Jermaine Ifedi is very solidly on as the top backup tackle.
Ooh.
And he played well last night, other than the false start, which, by the way, I think he was right in arguing. I don't think he was guilty. I think he was coaxed. And Jermaine Ifedi is another guy who has bounced around and has been rotten in a lot of places.
Yep.
He's gotten better every practice in Detroit. And I'm going to give Hank Fraley some credit for that. I'm also going to give him some credit for that, for figuring out where he fits. Because this is a guy he has started a game in the NFL at every position but center. He realized, I'm a right tackle. And he has embraced it. And they moved him over to the left side, and they switched Matt Nelson to the right side. And I actually think Ifedi handled that pretty well. But Nelson, weirdly enough, is better on the left side than the right side. And I don't understand that at all, because he's been a right tackle for most of his career. But I think Ifedi, I'm very confident in this. I think he passed Matt Nelson on the depth chart, and did so in the coach's eyes as well.
Do you think they stretched to keeping 9 on the line with
absolutely.
Absolutely. With the especially with what's going on with Jameson Williams being suspension, there's some flexibility with what they might do there.
I think they might keep 10.
Ooh, wow. Okay. That's a lot, and I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it because I think they need it, and I think they need to really look, whoever we keep that isn't the starting 5, I want them to spend their whole lives in Frank's house. I want him to sleep in his backyard in a tent, wake up and and he barks at him while he's eating his breakfast. I want them to live and breathe Hank Fraley's coaching and style, because that's how you're going to get these guys up to speed. We've seen it year after year after year. Riz, we talked about how bad the offensive line backups were last year, how we were terrified if someone went down. Immediately someone went down, and they stood up. And guys that were not doing it in the preseason and weren't doing it in camp did. And so look, they're great players. They're in the NFL. So there's a reason they're in the NFL. But there's a reason guys like Ifedi didn't perform elsewhere, but comes to Detroit and does. And it comes really down to Hank, how he teaches what he knows and how he schemes these guys. These guys
just flew over my house.
it's that trajectory thing again. And if you ever think in trajectory, you put these guys that are on the edge with Hank Fraley, and they will have the right trajectory. All right, so you're saying 9. We now have Decker, Jackson, Ragnow, Vaitai, Sewell, Glasgow, Sorsdahl. You're saying Ifedi. Let me ask you about Matt Nelson, which would be 9.
I hope not. That's
okay.
All I can say is that I hope he doesn't make it.
Let me ask
you. Again, nothing personal against Matt Nelson, but we have not seen him get one iota better this entire summer. He's still getting beat by the same moves, by the same dudes. He hasn't learned how to counter what James Houston or what Julian Okwara or what Christian Covington is doing to him. They win with the same damn moves every day. They don't have to change it all, and they can keep beating him with it. To me, that tells me that all the juice is squeezed out of that lemon.
There you go.
And I would rather keep Obinna Eze. I would rather keep Coyote Ashika. I would rather keep somebody that might have just a little bit more that you can squeeze out than continuing to bang your head with Matt Nelson.
Yep.
And I can anticipate the questions coming, but he's a great 6th lineman. Yeah, we don't know that Colby Sorsdahl can't be that.
Yep. So what about we're out on Nelson. We've got 8. You're talking about 9.
Are you out on Nelson?
We're out on Nelson. I'm out on Nelson.
Are you out on Nelson?
Yeah.
Okay.
For much the same reason, but like I said, he had the benefit of Hank, and he hasn't taken that step. And so I feel like, much like Marvin Jones, we've seen the ceiling, and we don't want to have that as the cap. I want to go to, I'm going to just go crazy with it. Our man who is very familiar to Aaron Rodgers, KO'd ayahuasca.
Coyote Ashika.
No. KO'd ayahuasca. Go in a dark room with him, and you're going to come out a different man.
At some point in my life, I will do an illicit drug, and it just might be hallucinogenic.
I've thought about doing that trip. Actually posed it to Sandman once to see if he wanted to. Anyway, what do you think? Onwuzurike. How do you report on it? I figured we could write it off. I figured I could write it off for my taxes as reporting. I was doing, research.
I'll go back in time when my mom dropped me off at Ohio University some 33 years ago. She left me with some very disturbing words. Whatever you do not do acid. And then they drove away. I'm like, what the fuck?
I'm thinking maybe at the time was on.
I listened to my
mother. That's usually when people will say that, is when they're tripping balls, man. All right, Onwuzurike.
Explains a lot of the psychedelic around my house when I was a little kid.
Oh man, Onwuzurike, do you keep him or do you cut him?
I would keep him because I have seen the ability of him to play tackle or guard, and if you're stressed in a game, you might want that. Now, this is going with the presumption that they're not keeping Brad Cecil, who has gotten worse the more he's played, unfortunately, as the backup center. So that means that Glasgow and Ragnow are the only guys who have any center experience at all on the team. And, you're fine if you got two. And quite frankly, if you lose your top two centers, there's no plan for that. It just isn't. That happened to the Rams. It might have been Goff's rookie year, or it might have been the year before. One of those years, they were playing their fourth string center, midway through the season, and one of the guys came back later, or they did a trade or something. But I do remember that, wow, what a revolving door, and what chaos that creates. You can't have that level of insurance. So I think, I think of the remaining guys, Onwuzurike is the best. He's better than Bobby Hart. He's better than Darren Paulo. Better than let me look at my list here.
Millette,
Alex Millette. Ryan Swoboda. Swoboda belongs in the practice squad. He's tall and has something to work with there. Who else is on this?
What about Galvin?
You know what's crazy? I have watched him in practice and I've watched him in games. I don't have an opinion of him. He's like wallpaper to me.
Wow.
Hasn't stood out in any way. He's got nice hair.
Good wallpaper.
He seems like a nice guy.
Good wallpaper.
Yeah.
Good wallpaper doesn't stand out when you notice it. It's a problem.
If they, that's right. If they want to keep him on the practice squad, I'm good with that. If they see something, if Hank sees something, good. I weirdly don't have an opinion on him.
There you go.
What about you? You watched him some.
Yeah, I think it's a solid piece of clay for the practice squad. I think had a lot of starts, has some experience. I don't know what that ceiling looks like. So look, if it was mine, I would make the decision. I don't have the time to make this as educated as a kind of pick as I would like for some of the other positions. So I will absolutely trust in the coaching staff. I mean, I'll trust the coaching staff anyway, right? They've proven me wrong here and there along the way, but we're pretty lockstep. But this one I will trust them on. But I think he's a good practice squad stash.
And Max Percher can stick around because he's an international player. Yep. He's Italian, and they don't have to keep. He doesn't count against the practice squad roster either, which is great.
It is. I have to tell the chat. Sorry, I said the 27th for cuts need to be in. It's the 29th. That was my bad. And thank you for pushback. Thank you for putting that in the chat and corrected. I don't know why the 27th was. Because I'm flying. Okay, so there we go. That's. Numbers.
Chris.
Yeah, I got to pack. I wanted to talk football instead. All right, let's move on.
Tomorrow, I'll just put this in here as a quick. Tomorrow is the last day off that I will have until after the NFL draft. I'm spending the day with my daughter tomorrow at a basketball thing, and will not have the laptop with me. And that will be the last time that I don't spend 12 hours working in a day for a long time. Yeah. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's fun and it's a grind. It's something. So I see a lot of people, a lot of writers, a lot of podcasts, a lot of in the space, they burn out pretty quick because they don't recognize that it's more than just watching games on Sundays. There's a lot of work involved. I mean, we're in our 9th year now.
Yeah.
But it's fun. You got to absolutely love it and commit.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's go to IDL.
I'm into it. All right, in IDL, I have to flip the roster over.
All right, there's a whole lot of recommendations about how to do the darkness retreat and so on in the chat. Appreciate all the expertise. Thanks, guys.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we'll start.
I get high off acetaminophen, so I'm probably not the person to have the conversation with.
Did you see Isaiah get hit in the bugs last night?
Yes.
I felt bad for my guy. Nothing will take a big guy down like a shot in the bugs, man. Ouch. So he's
fine.
Yeah.
Parts of him might be a little sore where he doesn't want to be. You don't want to get hit in the man zone.
Yes. Good thing for Bugs, he's okay. The pain passes as long as nothing is ruptured, and it doesn't seem that's the case. So he's in good shape. Wear your cups, kids. So Isaiah Bugs, I see him on the roster. I'm going to hit a couple just that I'm, and you tell me if I'm wrong because I'm going to go through the ones I think that they're ons. McNeil, Bugs, Onwuzurike. I think Broderick Martin, despite some difficulties, is also going to be on the roster. Can we agree there for those 4?
We got 4. I'm with you on those 4. Yeah,
I've got one that may wobble a little bit, but I'm going to go with Benito Jones. Some in, some out. Where do you stand?
He is a definite wobble point, and this is one of those. Do they keep 5 in lieu of keeping a 6th receiver or a 4th running back or a 10th defensive back? This is the decision that they have to make. Benito Jones belongs on the football team. He is one of the 53 best players on this roster. I think he's had a better summer than Onwuzurike and Broderick Martin both. But he doesn't have their upside. He is what he is. He's a backup nose tackle on a team that just drafted one in the 3rd round.
And
That's going to be tough to budget for. He doesn't play special teams.
You again.
Not that
you wind up with a guy that you know the cap on, right? Do you cap yourself at that position with that guy, or do you take somebody who may not quite be that, but has a higher ceiling that you could develop throughout the year? I think that's a lot of the mentality of this coaching staff and how they approach things, which goes back to my Marvin Jones thing in the beginning, right? All right, so
and the guy you're talking about there, Corey Durden.
Yeah.
Look at what he did last night, and it wasn't just a play where he took that dude for a ride on the bull rush. He had another one where he didn't get touched going into the backfield. He almost took the handoff. He missed, but he was in the backfield like instantaneously.
Yeah.
And he's a guy who has gotten better as practice has gone on. At the start of camp, he and Chris Smith, who's the other undrafted rookie, he's from Notre Dame. Durden is from North Carolina State. Smith was maybe a little like here, and Durden was here, and it's gone that way.
Yeah.
Durden continues to progress, and Smith is what Smith is, and I'm not sure that he'll make the practice squad even with what we've seen lately. But Durden, there's something there to work with.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just last night where he flashed that. He has been doing better all the time in practices. I sincerely hope he sticks around. But okay, so I'll phrase it to you. Do you think they would keep Durden over Jones if they went to a 5th defensive tackle?
I think they keep Durden over Jones.
Put that up there for the chat too.
Yeah,
what do y'all think in the chat? Y'all are smart.
Well, everyone, they're real smart. They're saying Bugs shouldn't have been out there. And I get it. I don't know that Houston should have been out there that long either, to be honest with you.
They just don't have anybody else that can play that position. Now, Bugs, they did. Like, you could have played Chris Smith more. You could have played Christian Covington more.
Yeah.
You could have played Broderick Martin more. But you didn't. At edge, they literally don't have anybody else at the bottom. The bottom of the roster is Julian Okwara and James Houston. Like,
yeah. We'll get there.
That's why they're out there.
So, yeah. Let's move on to edge. Are you okay? We can get Bop in here.
Yeah.
Let's go to edge. I'm going to hit a couple guys that I think are going to make it. Okay, and you can disagree, but I'm trying to make him as easy as possible. Hutchinson, I think he's earned his way onto the team despite 0 tackles in the preseason. Charles Harris, Kaminsky, Pascal, Romeo, I think makes it. I think Houston makes it as the sixth. Julian, look, he has. They talk about him as having trade value, which means they believe he has value, right? It's not just trying to get rid of him and make something out of him. If they keep a seventh edge, they keep Julian, I think. I just don't know that they keep 7. And I think he becomes the casualty. And that's just where I land on edge. Where's your head at?
I agree. I'm with you completely on that. I would actually put Houston ahead of Romeo. Because I think Romeo is going to be a guy that they keep, but is a game day inactive, and I think James Houston will be active if and when he's on.
What's funny is Romeo's really played well in the preseason.
He has,
and Houston has too. Houston's just played a lot, like you know what I mean. It's funny how
52 snaps last night.
Yeah. Maybe keeping him warm, like it's like the hot hand kind of thing with Houston, right? I don't know what the thing is.
He's a guy that needs the reps because again, this is a guy who was an off-ball linebacker at a FCS level school 2 years ago or 3 years ago when he left Florida, and his own coach Deion Sanders told him, "You're not a good enough linebacker to play. You can't play in the SEC, let alone the NFL. You better, when you come to Jackson State, you're playing as a pass rusher. That's where your bread's buttered." He's still learning that. He's got ridiculous upside at that, and I think that will get him. I would actually have him number 5 and Romeo number 6. And I do agree. I don't think Julian Okwara makes the team, and I don't think he's going to get. I think he's going to get traded. Now it's going to be conditional 7th.
Yep.
Giants again. When the Giants were in town, their media was asking a lot about him.
Yeah,
like. That seed had clearly been planted before they arrived, and like the New York media is pretty good on those things. But they also have a coach in Brian Dable who's known to float little balloons out there in the way that John Dorsey likes to do for the Lions. Although John has been unusually quiet and inconspicuous, he's there.
Yep.
You see him at practice all the time wearing his white sweatshirt, but he's not even talking to the guys who he normally talks to on the down low, and I'm not one of them. But I asked somebody that I know that knows him well, and it's like, yeah, he's keeping it close to the vest.
Yep. Yep. All right, let's go to linebacker, and then we'll get to the juice part. Alex Anzalone, Jack Campbell, Rodrigo. Reeves, Mabin, I believe, and Barnes are guys that make the team. If there's a casualty in there, and they're just not going to keep 4. I just don't see them keeping only 4 linebackers. If they go to 6, you've got Pittman. I don't think Nowaski makes it. I think he's going to be a casualty no matter what.
I agree with everything you just said. So I think we're good there, and I do think they're keeping 5, and I think Jalen Reeves, Mabin showed enough on defense the last couple of practices and games where he has earned that spot. And he was not there, by the way, 3 weeks ago. He would have been a pretty easy cut, but he's another guy who has steadily progressed and found the role in the defense where he fits best, and the Lions are using him there. So I think he's safely in too.
Yep. Okay, cornerback. I do want to just say when we go through this, there were people that told you that Jerry Jacobs was a backup, may not even make the team. Remember that. Okay, that was this spring. Cornerback, Cam Sutton. I feel like he makes the team.
I still get that from time to time.
Yeah. People don't pay attention. Cam Sutton.
People make their mind up and then they never change it, Chris. I hate that. I hate that.
Yeah. And that's the thing. New information you should be able to change, and you should just be wrong when you're wrong. That's okay. It's okay. That's the part. You were wrong.
It's really not.
Yeah, I was wrong.
It's really not
it's okay.
Hard.
I know you're perfect. I know you've never been wrong. Anyway, Cam Sutton, feel like he makes the team. Jerry Jacobs, as I said, makes the team. Potentially starts. Brian might not even make it. Brian Branch, I think, makes a team. Starling Thomas, I think, makes the roster. I think he's edgy on that. He's
special teams.
Yeah.
He's awesome on special teams.
It's his ticket.
He's your
Gilmore.
gunner.
Gilmore makes it, I think. And we could talk about that. I probably went to the edge early, but that's okay. Chase Lucas is going to make it, and then don't freak out, folks. Don't freak out. Let me just okay. Will Harris makes it. Okay, he's going to make it. But look, is Colby Richardson better than Will Harris, or is Khalil Dorsey?
Who else plays corner on this team?
Mosley is PUP, right? You got nothing there.
Yeah. Okay, so safety. Yeah. Savion Smith's gone. If he's not a cornerback, clearly. So the flex point here is that CJGJ, Brian Branch, Will Harris to some extent are all capable of playing anywhere.
Yep.
They can be your slot safety. They can play outside corner, although CJGJ will tell you that he never wants to play out there.
Yep.
And did so very funnily to a member of the Lions media who was really taken aback that he took offense to that. Wasn't me. And Will Harris, I think I've stated my position on Will Harris enough to just, I'll state it as plainly as I can. I don't ever want him on the field, but I love him as your fifth cornerback, fifth safety, special teams player. Because, again, he can fill in any role, in a pinch. And, Chris, to your point, the other guys that you're talking about, they're not better than him. And that's probably says more about their NFL future than it does about Will Harris.
And the one thing is you have crossover, like we say, in this cornerback and safety position. So you could, like Branch, if you want, you could list him as a safety instead of a cornerback as we're doing this. Right. It's just kind of where we put him. So just go with it in that one. But Will Harris did not play well. I will say, and he got his whole smoked last night. Okay, no one's saying that Will Harris is the guy or the solution in the secondary for this team. One of the difficulties, though, is cornerback is one of the most, if not the most, athletic position on the field, and finding guys that can do that at even a Will Harris level, just for folks out there, is really difficult. Really difficult. Yeah. He is what he is in the NFL. I don't know if there's more ceiling to him. We've seen him do some really good stuff. We saw him hurt Jerry too. It hurt my heart. But it is what it is, and he's what we've got, and that's why he makes the roster. I think that's kind of the story on this one.
Yeah. So I'm going to say this though. I think he makes it, and I don't think that one of Gilmore or Lucas do, because specifically they're keeping Will Harris. I don't think they're keeping that many. And that's going to be that's the fudge point where people are really going to hate Will Harris because he will take the job from one of them.
I think they keep 7, to be honest with you, because of just how many injuries happen at that position. If you think, like, even last year, in the year before, how deep we had to scrape down the roster to put guys just to field a team. I think they're going to keep those 7 guys. All right.
So let's do it this way. Let's combine defensive backs, because a lot of these guys can play multiple positions. So you got C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Cam Sutton, Tracy Walker. I'm doing these by number order of their jersey. I'm going through the ones I'm sure. Kirby Joseph.
Yep.
Brian Branch.
Yep.
Jerry Jacobs is 6. Starling Thomas, I think, is safely on, so he's 7. So then there's 2 or 3 spots left, depending on, again, if you keep a 5th linebacker or a 6th linebacker. If you keep 9 offensive linemen versus 8, like that's the fudge point there. They're certainly keeping 8. I think the 8th in that case is Will Harris. Don't shoot the messenger.
So we're doing
my choice, but
let me ask you this: do we keep Ifeatu Melifonwu? Do we keep him?
I think the last injury
was
And let's just say that everybody who was at practice on Thursday who was involved in a conversation with a Lions team staff member will not have him on the final roster, and I'm one of them.
Yep. So with him out, Tracy Walker, I didn't hear you mention him. He's on.
He's in. He's in. Yeah.
You said Kirby, you said CJGG. I'm kind of looking at my safety list here. I think if he's out, what about the only other one that maybe kind of has a shot? I think Brady Breeze. I think he's a practice squad guy, but I don't know that he makes the roster.
Let me look it up here.
I still think Gilmore makes the roster. I'm just going to say I still think Gilmore makes the roster.
I hope he does because he plays cornerback better than Starling Thomas does.
Yes.
Again, I'll refer to the earlier thing that Dan Campbell said to Dan Miller. They're looking at special teams for this specific roster spot, not cornerback play. Mm-hmm. But the way that Stephen Gilmore has played cornerback makes it pretty damn impossible to ignore how good he can be. He's a better. There's no doubt in my mind he's a better cornerback than Starling Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
But there's more that goes on beyond that. But I really hope that he sticks. I do think he sticks. I think he is the 9th, and I think that's the last one. And then I think you're getting rid of Brady Breeze. Chase Lucas is a tough one because he wasn't good last year as a rookie. He was injured. He's old for a guy. How old is he? He's already 26. He's the third oldest guy in the secondary. He's going into his second year, and they have moved him not exclusively, but he's played much more outside than he has in the slot. I don't know what you do with that. He played a fantastic night last night, and he's made plays periodically in camp. I don't want to say consistent. I'll say periodically. Much in the way that Corey Durden has made them periodically, but not consistently. Broderick Martin's the same way.
Yeah.
On offense, Chase Cota is that way. Periodically, not consistently. I don't know if that's going to be enough to get him on the roster, but I kind of think it is. But I think if Chase Lucas does make it, I think he's 52, 53. And in real peril if they decide to go out and get somebody else.
Agree.
My take on it.
All right. The run at the
now we got kicker. We got kickers.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about it. Jack Fox, lock.
He's good.
Lock on Fox. Lock the cock on Fox. Scott Daly. I think he's your long snapper. You're done.
For a long time.
Here's where you and I are going to have a little bit of a mental wrestling match.
Okay.
I don't think Riley Patterson's here. I just don't think he's it, and I think they know that. And I think last night put the last nail in his career with the Detroit Lions. It's unfortunate, but I think that's it. I like the idea of Parker Romo because he's got a big foot. But he missed a lot too, man. He missed a lot in practice and training camp. It's weird because the two of them would make a hell of a kicker, I feel like, if you could combine them.
With their feet together.
Yeah. And the leg muscles. I just feel like the kicker comes from outside. I do. Gould is the obvious name. We talked about him earlier. I think it comes from the outside.
So just to get this into the right, you would do what they did last year and cut them both and go with your initial 53 of not having any kickers on it.
I might.
You think that's what they're going to do?
I might. And
they did that last year. They also cut both their quarterbacks last year behind Cherkoff too. Remember that?
Yeah. But because seriously, I mean, no one's stealing them, right? For number one. And that gives you a chance, like a guy that you want to hold on to. And that before you put Jameson on IR, that gives you the chance to ensure you keep that, right? I just think they're signing from someone externally. Neither one of these guys has moved the needle, I don't think. And again, I'm using Gould as a name. If Gould is the guy, he didn't need a preseason. You didn't need to bring him in to play the preseason games and run practices and all that kind of stuff, right? Yeah. You just sign him and play and go. And so I think it's the one position where you can do that the most with the least amount of risk. So I just think the kicker is somebody to be named later.
Interesting. I actually agree with that. I don't think that the kicker who will be out there in Kansas City is on the roster right now. I don't know who it's going to be, but I think I'm with you on that. I don't think they're where they want to be on that.
Yep.
Which is, and I hate that because I was optimistic for John Parker Romo, but dude is just, there's no rhyme or reason to how he kicks the ball or where it's going.
I know.
And his best asset would be the fact that he's a touchback machine. But as Dave Phipp told me personally when I asked it to him in his press conference, they're okay with Jack Fox being able to kick off. That sort of ended my line of questioning there.
Yep.
I'm good. All right. That answered my question. That's when I knew that it was not going to be John Parker Romo. Now, will it be Patterson? The pick they gave up for him was absolutely negligible. So I don't think that would keep them from cutting him.
And I don't think these guys get married to bad players. And
he also had a miss from. Oh, I got the notebook right here. They did kicks on Wednesday. Where's it? There it is. He was wide left from 41.
He crossbar.
Romo missed so they did a series of 5 kicks. They started at 36. They did 36, 38, 41, 45, and 50. Patterson made the 50-yarder that day. Actually made it pretty comfortably too, but missed from 41. Romo missed the short one and made all the other ones.
Yeah, that's the.
And I have in my notes here, would have been good from 70, because it went. So we were standing that day because practice is closed and the stands are all gone. It was really quiet in Allen Park this week, which is weird. We are able to stand behind the goalposts, like where the turf ends and like the regular part of the grass begins. And I'm standing there with Brody from Woodward Sports, and Justin Rogers was there, and a couple of the guys were there. And the ball went like over our heads when we're 10 yards back from the goalpost, at least.
Yeah.
Like it was like, damn. But he missed the short one, and it wasn't close. So I don't know what you do with that. I really don't. I don't.
A lot of people talk about Dan's interview about Riley last night. Yeah, I heard it. I just don't. Yeah. Sorry. All right.
We'll see.
So that is the 53, we'll the getting to 53 choices, kind of what we're thinking. Some of what we would do, some of what the team would do, but a pretty broad conversation about what the roster might look like going forward for the Detroit Lions. Cut down day is the 29th, this Tuesday. And I would expect, look, if you see guys going early, it's usually guys that they respect and want to give a shot to go find a spot somewhere else, to land somewhere else. So don't think that, they're being rude or so out on somebody that they cut them on Saturday, right? And it's not quite that. So
that's what they do that's why they got rid of Logan Stenberg when they did.
Yeah.
They knew he wasn't going to make the team, so he greased the skids for his release.
Yep.
Now he's in Chicago. God bless him.
Yeah, good for him.
Bless his heart.
All right, let's get on to the next topic here really quick. The season for St. Jude. We can't forget about the season for St. Jude. This whole season, we're raising money for St. Jude. One of the best organizations helping families and kids in need, helping them not have to pay a dime when they have kids who are sick, cancer, facing some of the toughest times of their lives. again, we talk about the interview we did with Mandy, happens to be a member of my family, lost a child to cancer.
I was just going to ask you, I couldn't remember her name, but like tears, man.
Yeah, it's heart-wrenching. You go through that, and or you know people that go through that, and you get a real appreciation for what strength is, what it means to be a parent, and how hard life can be, and how little sometimes things like kicking battles matter in the scheme of things. So we put this at the forefront of what we've done for years now. This is I don't even know, like the 7th or whatever. Season for St. Jude, we're calling it this year. We'll be at it all year. stjude.org/DLP. Get your name and lights down below. Your name will pop up on the broadcast live while we're doing it as well. As anything you can contribute, we appreciate. $1 makes a difference. It means something. So stjude.org/DLP. stjude.org/DLP. Help us out on that. We appreciate that. And helping the folks in need at a time when they need it the most. So Riz, a Saturday show feels good. With that, we're going to call it. We're going to call it a day. I'm going to pack. I'm going to get some stuff done, and then I'm going to fly out of there. Remember, don't forget about us on Patreon, patreon.com/Detroit Lions Podcast. Get yourself some of the most intelligent Lions chat on the internet. You get access to our Slack chat if you give $5 a month or more in your local currency. Patreon.com/Detroit Lions Podcast. It's a great time. All kinds of great channels and conversation going on. And it's a great place to hang out with much better level of intelligence and camaraderie amongst Lions fans than you'll find just about anywhere else. Follow us on Twitter at DET Lions Podcast, DET Lions Podcast. It's pants free. We got the tickety tockety going on, DET Lions Pod. Check that out, DET Lions Pod. Give us a call on Skype, Detroit Lions Podcast, all one word, Detroit Lions Podcast, or call us on the Lions line at 248-782-8384. It's 248-RUB.
Rub you fug.
That's right. Rub you fug. And that'll be the line to call in the post-game shows throughout the year. You guys are going to love it. We're going to have good shows this year. Get some good stuff going on. Also, come to DetroitLionsPodcast.com. Subscribe to the podcast. Why, Riz? Why would somebody do that?
So I get to come in your ear holes automatically.
That's right. All right. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to see you guys and gals next week. Remember, no pants, no toasters, no hot tubs, no problems, because we are your Detroit Lions. Oh, wait, I forgot to say, I've been thinking this up all day, and I've been waiting to say it right now. We're going to see you next week with post-cut clarity. There you go. Remember, no pants, no toasters, no hot tubs, no problems, because we are your Detroit Lions. And Reddit Connection, thank you for tuning in, folks. Check out some great stuff from Zach, who's also from Lions Wire, coming tomorrow.